So back at the campfire, it's a beautiful Sunday. It was 8 degrees Celsius today, which is, for February in this part of Canada, is remarkable. So last week I posted a video and, I got a little pushback because the quality was crap, and rightfully so. Anyhow, so I thought about that last week, and what was going on with me. And I just couldn't get my feet under me for some reason. I couldn't get a thought out of my head in a coherent way. So, when sort of the dust settled, I realized that it sure felt like some more timelines were collapsing. A coalescing of identities, realities. I don't know whether anybody else felt anything like that last week, but I seem to get that a lot lately. And the trick is, hopefully I'm getting better at recognizing it, because when it happens, it kind of throws everything out of whack, and like you can't think and you can't talk, and it's really hard to articulate, and then other things in your life go wonky because, it's like some part of you is incompatible with the life you're living all of a sudden, and then it settles down. The energy dissipates or integrates or reacclimatizes or something. I don't know. But anyways, that was last week, and I apologize for that shit video. And I'm sitting far enough away from the camera so my mother can't, criticize. It's okay. That was a joke. I love my mother. Anyhow, I wanted to talk a little. I need to go back and revisit the events that I was trying to talk about in my last video, but I'm going to break it down. So this is going to be short. It's just going to be about the one event, because I think it's relevant to channeling. And so what happened is I don't often get to go, but there's a healing group that convenes, and there's 3 or 4 people that sort of are the core group, and then extra people show up. And I hardly ever get to go because I'm always at work. But on this occasion, a couple weeks ago, I went, and the idea is you kind of share where you're at, and everybody gives you some insight, and you help you through whatever sort of challenges you're going through psychically or metaphysically or health-wise. I mean, I call it a healing group, but it's more than that. It's into the realms of the etheric. And so, in the group, there's a woman who hosts it, and I call her the moderator. She's got the pendulum going and is trying to ascertain truth or validity as the conversation flows around the room. And then there's a couple other people who I would call grounding people that anchor the room and anchor the energy. And then there's another guy, I call him the operator, and he reads the Akashic records, and he just fires stuff off like for higher best and blah blah blah, and he's doing all this stuff, and he's really amazing when he gets going. And he has lots of insights pour out of this frenzy of psychic conversation. And then there was another woman there, and I don't know what I'd call her, but she's super clairvoyant. And her and I were talking about this thing where you occupy somebody else to observe their world and or do a reading on them, but you're kind of, you're overlaid with their consciousness, and there's a certain aspect that could be telepathic. Anyhow, so we were chatting about this, and we did a bunch of work on each of us in the group, and then there was another gentleman there who was having problems with his feet, and he has major problems with his daughter. And he's an older gentleman, and so he's got this family strife, and he wants to resolve it because he can't think of anything in this lifetime that he did that caused this anger. Anyways, so, and I'm just a bit of an observer. I call myself a conductor, but realistically, with a group like that, they're very potent, and I'm not a regular participant, so I tend to just sort of pull back. I can support the group with insights or um, nuggets of content, but realistically, I'm not in any way, shape, or form in a position to direct the movement. Anyhow, so the clairvoyant woman, she starts experiencing a past life, not hers, but the gentleman's daughter. And she explains it that she, thinking, because she's experiencing it first person, she says, I'm there with your daughter, and we're members of the harem of King Solomon's reign, and I've taken something from her, and it's the source of all of this resentment and anger in this previous lifetime. And I thought that was super strange, and everyone goes, yeah, okay, and they're going back and forth doing their validation stuff, trying to see if it's true and highest and best, and let only light. I don't know. It goes really fast. It's hard for me to recount exactly what they're saying, but everybody seems in agreement with this, and I'm sitting there going like, no, this is wrong. There's something wrong with this, because why would this clairvoyant woman who has no familial connection to the gentleman in question have some past life interaction with the guy's daughter in that lifetime that somehow perturbed the relationship with him and his daughter in this lifetime? That didn't make any sense. But anyway, so one of the things that I do is my hands respond to the energy. And in this case, I was sitting there, and now nothing physical shows up, but I feel like I'm holding something in my hands the size of a football. And it's black, and it's sticky, and it's heavy. It's like roofing tar, like a chunk of roofing tar. As your skin warms it up, it becomes sticky, but it's not inherently sticky. And it's heavy, and it's dark, and it feels like it's been layered and layered and layered and layered and layered and layered and layered with animosity, anger, and resentment. And I'm looking at this thing through my mind's eye, and I'm acting out like I'm holding it, and I'm thinking, his daughter is carrying this with her. This is what haunts her, and she's been building it up and holding on to it and lacquering it with negativity for multiple lifetimes. That's what I get. That's what I feel. I'm looking at this, and everybody else is going on in the room. They're all doing their thing, and they're all really engaged in this narrative that the clairvoyant woman shared a lifetime with the daughter and caused some major disruption, some major karmic thing. And they kind of glossed over it a little bit, and I thought, no. For something to manifest in multiple lifetimes and cause this much grief in this one, this is a big deal. This isn't like you stole a ring from this person or their favorite dress, or like something bad happened. Anyway, so I'm holding this thing, but in the context of the group, I look at it and I say to the daughter, who isn't there, it would be better if she was, of course, but she hates her father, so she wouldn't have anything to do with anything he does. So I say to her etherically, because you just speak it and hope that, somehow the message gets through, that you don't need to hold this anymore. You don't need to carry this anymore. This burden is destroying your life, and you need to let it go. You need to set it down. You need to release it. And I held it out to my hands, and I went, and I tried to blow it away into dust and ash, just let it turn into dust. You don't need to carry it anymore. So that was my incantation, or my prayer, or my alchemy to the group. And I didn't really understand whether or not it had any effect or not, of course, because she isn't there. The daughter that hates her father in this lifetime. Anyway, so I went away, and the group breaks up, and we're done for the night, and I go home, and this still is sitting wrong with me that the clairvoyant woman thought that she was there with the daughter in that previous lifetime had caused some major relationship stress. So I'm thinking about this, and the days go by, and then I think back and I said, well, let's have a look at this thing again. And I imagine it that I'm holding it in my hands again, and I'm looking at it and I'm turning it over, this dark, negative, heavy energy soaked thing. And while I'm looking at it and thinking about it, it breaks open. It splits open. Now I'm looking at two halves, and in it is a fetus, except it could be a premature baby, dead. And I'm sorry if this triggers anybody, but and then the first thought is that, okay, it was a premature birth, and it was at a time in history where that was a death sentence. If you had a premature baby, it died. And then I thought, no, that isn't quite right. Is it stillborn, or is it a late-term miscarriage? And late-term miscarriage comes to mind. That seemed to get some traction. And so I'm thinking about it. I think, okay, well, that's disastrous. Okay, now we've got a thing that could have happened that would cause a multi-lifetime karmic incident. And what I realized when I thought back to the healing group, it's a clairvoyant and the operator and the moderator and these people and the anchors trying to hold space to solve this karmic riddle. The clairvoyant woman was experiencing that previous lifetime with the daughter, but it was the father that was in that lifetime, and she was viewing it first person through the father's eyes in that lifetime because she had overlaid her consciousness onto his for that experience. She wasn't there in the harem of King Solomon, but the father and the daughter were, and somehow the father was responsible for the miscarriage. Now, I don't know what would have happened, but the blame was there. And if you think about that time in antiquity, if you were a wife or a harem wife to the king or the sultan or the emperor, and you miscarried a son, well, who knows? They might stone you to death for that. Like your whole life, your existence, and everything is about producing heirs to the throne, so that the ruling family can propagate. And if one of the harem girls was the father in that lifetime, was directly responsible for this miscarriage, then that creates a karmic trap, or a karmic anchor point, where and a deep ancestral problem. Anyways, I tried to pass along that insight. I don't know whether it got through or not. I'll check next time I'm with the group. The clairvoyant woman hasn't been back since, so I can't check with her directly off the cuff. But the reason why I'm telling this story is, the insights, they don't always come right away. They're not always clear. There's frequently aspects where you have to step out of the action long enough to read the room, I guess. And to try to put, maybe it's just an exercise that when you practice it up and you try to get better at it, you'll get better at understanding what you're seeing. But this is the problem I have when I go and see psychics and I pay them for their psychic intuitive abilities, is most of the time they're just not on it enough. They get a sense of stuff, and you're paying them by the minute. You pay them a lot of money, and they just can't dial it in quickly enough and effectively enough and succinctly enough. They know they're on the right track, but they just aren't pulling it off. They aren't pulling all the pieces together. which is why I don't really like going to see psychics. It's not that I don't believe in it. It's that it's just a really tricky thing to pull off because I think we're limited on what we can see. And the other side of this is when you overlap yourself onto someone else, be it another version of yourself in another lifetime, alternate timeline, visit somebody in a past life, you got to be really aware, or I need to be really aware, I shouldn't say you, but what I'm trying to become more aware of is to relax and get an honest feel for whether I'm visiting myself or someone else, or whether I'm being shown something important. Could be people I have nothing to do with, and there could just be a lesson coming through. And seeing it from somebody's first person perspective is very powerful and very potent because it feels like it's you. It feels like you're the person in the play acting the part, and it's not. It's somebody else, and you're just watching the movie in 1080p, 4K, high definition. You're living it. And anyways, that's what I got from that experience. And I think that's a long enough video. And fire's going pretty good. And I hope you enjoyed that. You know, even though the dog is a pain in my butt. I love him to bits. And thanks a lot. I'll talk to you later.